Okay, so the recording has started, the transcription has started. And as I say, this will be on YouTube as soon as I can. Okay, so we started off last week talking about the module as a thing, the sorts of stuff we'll be doing in it. What I want to talk about this week is a continuation of a wee bit of the stuff that we talked about last week when we were talking about professional institutions. So I want to start talking about professional institutions in general and the BCS in particular. Now, I'm sure that you're all already familiar with this because you were all asked to read these presentations before today, and I'm sure you've all done that. I'm sure you haven't come into a module in professional computing practice and not been professional about it. So I'm positive that you've already read these. So the first thing I want to talk about is professional institutions, professional organisations, just in general. What they are, why we might want to be a part of them. And some of you, most of you hopefully, will have taken part in a tutorial where you've talked about these professional organisations. And they go across the board. Any sort of organisation that considers itself professional tends to have an overarching organisation to which you must belong to be considered a part of that profession. For example, you can't teach in Scotland without being a member of the General Teaching Council for Scotland. You can't practice law without being a member of the Law Society of Scotland. You can't practice medicine without being a member of the General Medical Council. The idea is, well, why do you think that is? Why do these organisations have their own, why do these professions have their own organisation?
To enforce a standard.
Okay, to enforce a standard.
Or
Why
I
do you need an
guess,
sorry?
if you don't have an organization to regularly enforce a standard or like I guess test its members, there is no like I guess no standardized quality to which people can be held accountable in that profession.
Okay. But of course, people can be held accountable in all sorts of different ways. Does it have to be a professional organisation that does that?
Certainly not. You could have the parliament enacting laws and all that. So, but generally, it's to uphold the name and the profession with high integrity and standard at higher standard. So, hence why you have this to set the rules and standard for everyone to follow.
Sorry. That's a point that's backed up by Jamie, who says they're jobs that require a lot of trust. But that doesn't explain why we have an organisation. Why aren't they regulated by law, or by government, or by local authorities, or you choose?
Is it because they're regulated by members of that profession? So, as doctors would regulate the GMC and be like high members of the GMC, so it can be tailored specifically towards doctors?
So why would that need to be the case? It's the same question, and why not leave it to government or law?
Because it's a complicated skill set that maybe a centralized governing body wouldn't have the expertise to overlook.
So what you're saying is performing abdominal surgery on a 78-year-old's a difficult thing.
Absolutely. I mean, he could end up dead. What would I say? What would I tell the family? I couldn't just, waltz in there and be like, oh, I can do whatever I want.
And in general, that's the reason that we have these organizations. There's a general consensus that if you want to police medicine, the only people that can really do that are medical practitioners for exactly the reasons that you've just identified. And if you have a lawyer, how do you know if a lawyer has done the best for their client? Unless you're a lawyer yourself, how can you possibly know that? So I think we get to the point where we have such an amount of specialized knowledge that it becomes next to impossible for others to judge. Now, it can't be about all parts of it. And if you look at these, and I hope you will look at these, you'll find that a lot of these organizations have what we call lay members. Do you know what a lay member is?
Members who are just there to follow, perhaps, not sure.
Jamie's put in the chat non-professional members, and that's the case. So ones who aren't a member of that profession. Why do you think they also want members who aren't members of that profession when we've just said that you need a clear understanding of what they do to be able to decide what a professional standard is? Surely those two things clash.
I mean, maybe if there's issues that concern, I'd have both the professional body and I guess the general public as stakeholders. An institution that is only made off of professionals might make decisions based on standards that could influence the general public in a negative way.
I think you're getting there. Let me give you an example. And Rowan's hit on it, actually. Or certainly hit on the example that I was about to give. Considering the point of view of others, if you go to a hospital at the moment, all the staff have badges saying something along the lines of, hello, my name is, and their names on it. Now, that isn't anything to do with how well they'll care for you or their professional qualifications or anything like that. That comes from outside the organisation that says, do you know, we're coming in here and we're treated like a piece of meat. Somebody wanders up, takes their temperature, wanders away. Somebody comes in and says, yeah, we're doing surgery on you tomorrow, goodbye. There was no kind of personal part to that. And sometimes when you're involved in something, you get that kind of tunnel vision. You focus on the issue rather than the people that are involved. So that came from lay members of a body representing the hospital. They said, actually, can we have something that just says, yeah, we're all people here, my name is. So it's important to get outside voices as well. On the other hand, I wouldn't expect those lay members to decide about the treatment practice for a 48-year-old woman who has skin cancer. Could you give an informed opinion on that? Because I know that I couldn't. So for these kind of professional bodies, we get to the point where we're thinking, okay, they are incredibly specialised. There's a lot of knowledge involved. The kinds of people that do them have to get that knowledge, have to keep up with that body of knowledge, that corpus, and ensure that they are up to date with everything that they do. And of course, that's difficult to do unless you're actually a part of that organisation. Which is why these organisations take their duties so seriously. They are given this privilege to police their own profession. And so they ensure that they do it properly, which is why doctors are struck off. It's also why you sometimes get questions about whether it's a good idea. Does anybody know how many? Oh, that's changed. Before this year, does anyone know how many teachers were removed from the teaching register in the last 5 years? Anybody want to take a guess?
100?
100?
400?
400? Well,
2000?
Ansamana guessed first, so I know it's a thumbs up or thumbs down, but we'll take that as a higher or lower. So Ansamana guessed 100. Do you think higher than 100 or lower than 100? Polls in the chat if you don't know. Should have popped up on your screen though. Okay, we'll get roughly 80-20 on higher. The number is, this is the point I wish I had a soundboard and I could do a drum roll and all that kind of stuff, but the answer is 0.
Oh,
No one was
oh
removed
no.
from the teaching register. And you have to imagine, were there really that many teachers that were that good? So organisations have to be careful. Because in order to keep this going, they have to maintain the respect of their users. That's why when a lawyer steals money, they're immediately removed from the Law Society and they can't practice again. They have to take continuous exams. They have to take things every year to show that they're up to date. All that kind of stuff. So it's really important for them to show that they are professional, that they have the knowledge, that they keep up to date, that they do the best for the people that they work with. Which is why you tend to get kind of similar aims. For law, of course, it promotes the interests of solicitors, but also those of the public. So it is clear that it's about the people that they deal with as well. GMC, promote and maintain the health and safety of the public. So this is about more than the professions, it's about thinking about how the profession fits into the wider public realm. And to do that, they have both rights and responsibilities. You start to say, okay, well, what are the standards? Now, there may be there may be slight differences in many of these codes of conduct and professional standards, but I would suggest that there are more similarities. Because they all talk about learning and keeping up to date. They all talk about professional standards. They all talk about how you deal with other people, whether that's other professionals or your clients or the general public. So by joining that organization, you're saying something about yourself. You're saying that, yes, you agree with these things. You agree that you will abide by those standards, that you'll abide by the way that the profession thinks that you should work. Now, for some professionals, that's required. So GTC, Law Society, GMC, for those three professions, you have to be a member to practice. Do we have to be a member of anything to practice as a computing professional?
People that took the first test can answer this one with more confidence.
Almost like I've set it up that way. Okay, so it's about 3-1, about no, you don't have to yes, you do have to be a member. Well, if that's the case, perhaps you could tell me, where is it? Just type in which organization you need to belong to be a part of the computing profession. Or to broaden it out, come on, only a third of the class have responded. But I think you're getting the idea. There are some organizations mentioned in that word cloud. But the answer is none. We don't have to belong to any particular body to practice as a computing professional. Does that make it more or less important to belong to a profession? If we don't have to be, should we do it or should we not bother? So thumbs up for yes, we should. Thumbs down for nah, it's not worth it. We're getting to the kind of reverse of the previous one. So we've got about 3-1. It's saying, well, actually, yeah, we kind of should. Actually, it's going up. It's now about 6-1. That you should belong to a professional body. As I say, you don't have to. anyone can practice as a computing professional. There is no oversight. There's no body that you have to belong to do that, which is great if you want to get into it. If you want to wander up to your local high street, hire a shop and put up a sign saying computer services, there's nothing stopping you. On the other hand, there are so many people who have done that and provide terrible service and then shut down after 3 months and run away somewhere else, that we're in danger of getting to the point where people will say, not, do you know somebody that can fix a computer, but do you know somebody good that can fix a computer? The implication being that lots of the people that they've used before aren't good.
Just as the analogy or the example of a plumber.
Go on.
I said, just as the analogy or the example of a plumber. You know, you have so many plumbers, but you know, if you are looking for a plumber, you don't just look for a plumber, you look for a good one and with a reputation. No.
Yep.
So perhaps, so that's where the professional body comes in. You know, it helps streamline those things in order for you, for everybody to be in line. So if you go against the policies or the profession, you are struck off. So everybody who uses that services would have confidence. Like people going to the hospital, they don't ask, oh, is this doctor good or is this doctor bad? Because everybody knows that if for you to become a doctor, you know, you have to meet certain standard, and that standard has to maintain or enhance, but it cannot go below that.
There's a certain professional standard you expect to go and see a doctor, and you may like them more or less, but you still expect them to know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And we don't have that. So it's easy to get into the profession, but we're not at the stage where we can self-govern. We just don't have that standard where we can say, yeah, everybody that does this is at that standard. Unlike, say, medicine, law, or teaching. So I suppose the question is, do we actually need them? Is it worth having that sort of professional body? Or are we happy being just having somewhere that we register? Like, you know, if you are a plumber, you have to register with, oh, I've forgotten the name of the trade body. But you have to be certified. If you're an electrician, you have to be certified. Should we just say, yeah, that's fine with us. We'll be a trade body. You register with them. In that way, anybody can just join. So do we actually need to have a professional body?
I mean, the example you just gave about the people that put their labor up and they do shit service and then they run, kind of speaks for itself there, right? Because it's such a low barrier to entry, perhaps would be a better idea.
A bit better idea to have just like a trade body. Is that what you're saying?
No, to have an actual professional body that that people belong to, and they have to, you know, make sure that they are. I mean, it is a rapidly evolving industry. Sure, it would be hard, but I feel like it would also be better for the people that are actually serious about it.
And it certainly would be hard. And you're right, it's about people being serious about it. So we're in this class. All that people have to do is click yes or no. And yet, roughly half the class haven't bothered. So the question I ask myself is, if the person in this class who's supposed to actually be here and be taking part in the class can't even be bothered to click a button, are they the sort of person that I want to hire? Are they the sort of person that I want to give access to my server room? Are they the sort of people that I want to have knitting my network together?
Nice turnaround.
So Stephen says if we want standards to get higher, you might need a professional body. And I think what Stephen's saying is probably where the profession is just now. That most people think that we should be moving towards being a fully professional body. And they could do all those good things that are on the screen. Because it's important to have that representation. Of course it is. So, presumably, if most people think it's important, including you guys, judging by that poll, or at least those of you that took part, why hasn't somebody gone to the bother of just setting one up and saying, yes, let's do it? And of course, the answer is they have. So we have a whole bunch of organisations. We've got the British Computing Society, the Institute of Analysts and Programmers, the Association for Computing Machinery, and the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, all of whom are professional bodies. The difference is, of course, you don't need to join them. So, I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm now confused. So we've gone from where we don't have a professional body, but maybe we should move towards it, to, but we've actually got all of these professional bodies, but we don't need to join them. We've gone from not having any to having too many. Which one do we go for? And it's up to you.
Doesn't that part usually get, sorted out by law? But we don't have that yet.
If we get to the point where we do have an official professional body, then yes, they will be given that right in legislation, in the same way as the General Medical Council are. We're not at that point yet, but at some point, hopefully we will be, and there will have to be an organisation. Possibly the one that it will be is, certainly for the UK, the main one is the BCS, the British Computing Society. Just like any sort of organisation, you can work your way through it. So there are various grades, various membership levels, which show how much you have engaged with your profession and how much knowledge you have. And you'll quite often see it on somebody's business card. You'll see a chartered engineer or a chartered accountant, showing that they've gone through those steps to gain the knowledge and to get to a certain level in their profession. And those same sorts of things are mirrored by the BCS. And it starts off at non-professional, so you can actually join the BCS as a student. And I would wholeheartedly recommend that you do. You can see here, it's not free, but it's £20 a year, or what I would recommend, you spend 30 quid and you join the BCS for all the time that you're at university. Why do I recommend it? Because it shows that you believe in something. Let's not beat about the bush. When you leave here, you want to get a job and you want to make sure that you stand out. Being a member of the BCS says something about that. It says I've thought about my profession. I've thought about what kind of professional I want to be, and I've taken the conscious decision to join up with the BCS to show that that's the kind of professional that I want to be. And depending which program you're on here at the university, when you leave the university, you can automatically become an associate member of the BCS. So if you just join as a person, you have to prove that you've reached a certain level. The way that you're proving it, certainly for the computing science degree and other programs, you'll need to check it because I can never remember. For the computing science degree, the way that you prove that you've reached a particular level is to pass that degree. So you can immediately go into the BCS at a particular level, and then you can work your way up as your skills progress, as your experience progresses, until, in the same way as you can have a chartered accountant or a chartered engineer, you can become a chartered IT professional. So it's about moving on in your profession, showing your skills, showing that you're getting better. And if you're interested in seeing what you need to do to prove that, there's a link in the presentation that you can click on. It shows you what you need to get to have those. So what can we say about this? Well, traditional professions, ones that have been around for, well, probably centuries, certainly decades, but probably centuries, have their own professional organizations. And they're recognized as being essential to governing that profession. We're not there yet. We have organizations, they aspire to get to that point. We're not there yet, but hopefully we will get there soon. Anybody have any questions about that? Nope, all happy? Okay, in that case, that is probably a decent time to take a break. Do you want 5 or 10 minutes?
I only need 5. Just refill my coffee and I'm good.
5 minutes? Okay, I'll see you back in 5. Okay, and we are back. Not seeing any questions in the chat, so I'm assuming we're all good. Okay, so we were talking about professional organisations, and we had identified the BCS as the one that's closest to what we're looking for. And it's certainly the leading one for the UK. And it's the only way that you can get to chartered IT professional. So as I say, if you hear someone say they're a chartered accountant, you think, oh, that's good. And hopefully we'll get to the same sort of point about chartered IT professional. So it's related to those: chartered accountant, chartered engineer, chartered scientist. The other thing is that as a chartered body, it means it has that extra status. So it's the charter is a royal charter, because for some reason in this country we still think that the family somebody's born into gives you some sort of particular status. So we call them royal charters instead of just chartered, but it does mean that they're a legal entity. And we assume that if you're chartered, you're at the top of that entity. Top of that body, rather. It's been almost 40 years since the BCS got its royal charter. And, 1984, yeah, so almost 40 years. And they're a big organisation. And like we spoke about, it's not just about the body themselves or the members, it's about promoting the profession and ensuring that those who deal with those in the profession have a good experience. So like all bodies these days, it has a mission and a vision. So they are enabling the information society. And they want to be a world-class organisation for IT. Now, some of the things that they do to be a part of a professional body are having a code of conduct to say, if you join the BCS, here's the things that you have to do. Here's a code of conduct that you have to follow. You have to give the best service that you can. You don't pretend that you can do something that you can't. You know, if somebody comes up to you and says, oh, can you install me a new clustered node server based on Linux, but with connections to an IBM OS 600 machine? You're meant to answer. And you're not meant to answer, oh, yeah, and then go and look up what all those things mean. You're meant to answer honestly to make sure that you can do those things. So part of the code of conduct is to decide how you behave, what your approach is. And as with any code of conduct, if you don't follow it, you can be disciplined. Not least by being removed as being a member. The other thing you're supposed to do is to share things. If you figure out a good way to do something, new developments, good practice, tell other people, whether it's your colleagues, whether it's publicly, tell people and distribute that good practice elsewhere. And again, in common with other professional bodies, the BCS wants to set standards. You have to have a certain amount of technical knowledge. You have to have a certain amount of experience to do particular things. You might think, well, what does that matter? Well, the next time you're in hospital and you see a surgeon with 30 years experience and compare her to a newly qualified doctor, you tell me whether you think experience is important or not. And one of the things we sometimes forget about professional organisations is it's also about advising. Whether it's central or local government, the idea is the people that belong to this are the best people to go to get advice for any changes that are going to be made, for any approaches that are going to be taken, all of that kind of stuff. So joining the BCS gives you all that. It says, yeah, I sign up to that kind of stuff. That's where I'm going to be in my career. Now there's stuff that you get with it, so there's online books and all that kind of stuff. One of the most important ones is the networking opportunities. So there's a BCS branch in Glasgow and they have meetings. Go along to the meetings. Get the knowledge, hugely important, but also meet the people. You know, not being too mercenary about it, but the kind of people that have been in computing for a while, the kind of people that are in organisations already, the kind of people that might be looking for new people to join that organisation. And if you're so inclined, join the Young Professionals group so that you can support each other. So 30 quid to get a student membership. Depending on which course you're on, you then get an associate membership when you leave. Definitely worth doing, I think. So with that advert, which is what it felt like, out of the way, how many of you think that you'll join the BCS? I keep looking at the wrong bit for responses and I think nobody's done anything. Okay, so I've been successful in my advert then. And it's odd because I've been a computing professional for 10, nearly 15 years. And when I started, I didn't feel the need. Because when I started, there were loads of jobs. There were loads of organisations that needed the skills that I had, and they couldn't have cared less whether I belonged to the BCS or the local bowling club. They just wanted the skills. But as the profession has matured, as competition has become harder, it has become more important. And Jen, who's also been nearly 10 or 15 years in the computing profession, has found the same. Jen and I are both much younger than we look.
Do you think the BCS is a internationally recognized organization, or is that just a British thing?
Oh yes, it's internationally recognised. So it is the British one. But in the same way as if you belong to the GMC as a doctor, you don't suddenly, go to France and people go, oh, you're not a doctor. They'll say, oh, okay, you remember the GMC, you're a doctor. And you might have to do like local exams just to prove it, but they will take that as proof.
Got it.
In fact, one of the reasons that I mentioned about the Law Society for Scotland, well, does anyone know why I specifically mentioned the Law Society for Scotland rather than the Law Society?
England and Wales have got their own society. Scottish law and English law is
Yep.
obviously different.
Our laws are different. There's Scottish law and there's English law. And not
Is it just me, or did Mark I could barely hear Mark speak there. I think he
I
wanted to
saw,
say something.
yeah, I saw
Sorry,
Mark come off his
Nicholas.
mic, but I couldn't hear him either.
I just realised that I had my headset pointed straight up instead of at my mouth.
Oh.
Sorry about that.
I suspect you're going to say the same thing that's in the
Yeah.
chat just now.
Yeah.
So yes, we have different laws in different areas. So the reason it's the Law Society for Scotland is that shows that you can be trusted in Scots law. That doesn't mean that you can be trusted in English law, and vice versa. So if you move, they'll go, okay, you're a lawyer, you have most of the knowledge that you need, but we're going to give you an exam to make sure that you understand the law for where you are just now. Rebecca's asking if you can be a member of multiple professional bodies. Absolutely. I'm a member of the BCS and the ACM. And I know I shouldn't have a question in my voice about that, but so yes, I'm a member of a few professional bodies. And I'll be honest, I only joined the BCS when I started teaching this course because it felt wrong to not do so. I got through my whole career without doing it. I don't think we're in that position now. Actually, yeah, I have, Connor, you're right. I have joined so many I can't remember. But again, it's part of that thing about proving that you have that experience. I'm a member of an organisation that's only involved in e-assessment to show that I know about that. So you can definitely join more than one, and it shows that you have experience in different areas. There's nothing wrong with that. So as I say, we're mainly the BCS, and I won't cover the same stuff that we had in the previous one. So you don't have to be a member, but it does demonstrate a certain amount of commitment to what you're doing, what you think you should be as a person in the industry, or just even as a person. And although we're not yet at this is the professional body, and you must join it, we are at the stage where it's the professional body that's recognised. And someone asked that earlier. Is it recognised? And it is, because the BCS are invited into Parliament. So if there's going to be new legislation that's either IT based or needs an IT input, the BCS or a representative of the BCS will be invited in to give their learned response. So the organisation will represent its members. It will ensure that new professionals are taught properly, and this inspecting courses in computing is what I was talking about earlier. One of the courses they inspect is ours. And if we didn't do enough, they would say, no, you're not going to be part of what we're doing. And they'll also have their own exams. So as you gather information, knowledge, experience in your career, you'll be able to take further examinations to say, oh, right, okay, I'm at the next level, perhaps even chartered membership. So there are intangible benefits, there are tangible benefits. And you can see them on the screen. And there's a whole bunch of levels of membership, starting with non-professional. In other words, you start. You're saying, I want to be in computing, but I'm not yet. And I recognise that, and that's fine. So whether you're a student or whether you are just started, there's a grade for you. The first professional one is associate, and that's what you get by taking some of our courses. It says, okay, no, we agree that you've reached a certain amount of knowledge, you've got enough experience that you're now a professional. But of course, that's just the start of it. You move on from associate to professional after 5 years. Sorry. 1 year's experience, you become an associate. You then need to get experience, either 5 years or the degree that we offer. So it says, okay, taking this degree, doing all these courses, passing them all, says, yeah, okay, we believe that you're a professional, both on the technical side and some of the other ones, but also the non-technical side in this module. And then as you move through your career, spend more time, you can start to move on. So once you have 8 years experience, you can take a chartered exam to become a chartered IT professional. And eventually you become a fellow. And there's not many of those, but it says that you have made a commitment and reached a level in your profession that people should listen to you. As I say, there's benefits, including being able to put letters after your name, which some people seem to enjoy. Some people need longer business cards because they collect the letters after their name just for the fun of it. But there's a serious side to it as well. It does show that commitment. It does show that you believe in something. And as I say, if you're applying for your job, that can help. They know, for example, that you'll follow the code of conduct. They know that you as a professional know about standards, that you know what those standards are, and that you have committed to following them. And that's a real comfort blanket for a lot of employers, a lot of clients who want to know that you're not just a fly-by-night, take the money and run kind of person. That you have some integrity. And integrity is hard to prove. It takes a lot of time getting to know somebody. It takes a lot of time understanding them and their work before you believe that they have integrity. In any sphere, we talked about plumbers earlier. If you hire a plumber, you don't know whether they have integrity or not. But maybe after you've hired them or worked with them a couple of times, you go, oh, yeah, okay, yep, I'll trust this person. So one of the things that joining the BCS does is it hopefully gets you to that point quicker. The fact that you've done it, the fact that you've committed to these codes of conduct is saying, yes, I have integrity. And I've committed to that as part of being a professional. And you can see the sorts of things that it means that you have to do or not do, depending. So there has to be respect within the workplace that someone identified earlier. I think it was Anson Manners identified that earlier. You have to seek, accept, and offer honest criticisms. And you'll remember last week we had a small debate about whether or not you would be expected to do that. Someone suggested no, I suggested yes, and some others backed me up in that. You will be asked for that. That's part of the reason we do the peer assessment, to criticise in its proper sense, to look at, evaluate, and give judgment on, to criticise others' work. But it's a bit more than that. It's about saying, okay, well, I'm not going to injure others. I'm not going to injure them in any way, not just physically. I'm talking about financially or reputationally or anything else. It's saying, I'm going to do this properly and I'm going to make sure that others are not hard done to on the basis of what I do. So it's about integrity, it's about ethics. And as you know, we'll be talking about ethics later on. Both for your colleagues, people in the profession, whether they work in the same organisation or not, but also about the wider public. It's saying, okay, well, you can't just pretend that you work in a bubble. And again, I mentioned some of this last week as well. The kind of professional who says, yes, I will put in a cheat so that when my car is tested, it gives a different reading to the actual output that you would see on a road. Well, did that give due regard for public health? Did that give due regard for security? Did that give due regard for the well-being of others? In particular, did it give due regard to the environment? You're working in all sorts of systems in all sorts of areas. And it's important that when you do that, you have a clear understanding of what's right and wrong, what you can and can't do with the information that you have access to. If you're working in a medical system, you suddenly have access to patient records. What do you do with those? And of course, the answer is you don't do anything with them, they're not yours. About 6 months ago, somebody was fired from a hospital near where I live because they got access to patient records in order to message somebody to ask them out on a date. I'm not entirely sure that's having due regard for somebody's privacy, security, or well-being. So signing up for these things says that you do have that regard, that you do understand that these things are an issue, and that you are going to ensure that you always work to the best standards, that you won't discriminate, that you will have equal access, and that you'll ensure that your skills are such that you'll be competent in what you do. And it's the same thing as when we're talking about having experience and moving on and understanding more of what you can do. You can't just go into someone and say, oh yeah, I'll give it a go. No bother, lads, where do I sign? You have to understand what the issues are and know whether or not you can actually solve them. It's no exaggeration to say that I have turned down more work than I've accepted. The reason for that is the things that they've asked me to do is not where I have experience. Not surprisingly. Spend 10 seconds and look up all the different types of hardware there are, all the different programming languages there are, all the different applications there are, and think about the multitude of ways that they can cross over, and ask yourself whether you would be effective in every single one of them. And if the answer that you come up with is yes, then you're either the best computing person that has ever existed, or you're lying to yourself. And I know which one I think it is.
I mean, there's a spectrum of different answers to that, though, right? It's like you can say that, yes, I may not have that expertise now, but I have the confidence to figure it out. Like, would that constitute a different answer?
That
So,
is
like,
indeed a different answer. Yes, you're right. So if what you're saying is, okay, so I don't have experience on System X, but I do have experience on System Y. I think that I can take that experience and use it for your system, but I've never worked on them directly, and leave it up to the client to make up their mind, then yeah, that's fine, as long as you're open, upfront, and honest about it. So yes, you're right, there is a spectrum there. It's not about saying, oh no, I have only ever programmed in Java, therefore I will never do anything else ever again. But on the other hand, if you've only ever programmed in Java and someone says, hello, would you like to be a C programmer? And you go, absolutely. And you know how to do it? Oh, definitely. When you don't, no, that's not acceptable. But if you say, well, no, I haven't professionally programmed in C, but I've done Java, and there's a lot of crossover there, and I'm fairly confident that I can make that change. Then yeah, okay. But it's about being realistic. So yes, you can't always say, oh yes, I have this exact range of capabilities. And in fact, sometimes you get some really stupid things. I've seen adverts. We need this IT person. Must have 12 years solid experience in, and then the name of technology, which I know has only been around for 3 years. What are you supposed to do with that?
Be a rock star developer. The hell does that mean?
Yeah. So do you just not apply for the job, or do you go, well, I'm going to apply for this, but are you really sure? So yes, you're right. It's not a yes, no. There is a spectrum, and your professional competence in one area might help you in another. And as long as you're clear in that, yeah, that's okay. As long as you don't say, oh yes, I've got 20 years experience programming Raspberry Pis in clusters. Have you? Are you sure? And part of the reason there's that continuum is because hopefully you will continue to add to your knowledge and experience. You don't want to stand still. You don't want to just say, oh, I will only do this and nothing else. Quite the opposite. You will have to change, particularly in a profession like ours. I'm trying to think. So any of you who did Introduction to Programming that's in this year will have done it in Python if you did it at UWS. In the years that I've been here, we have used C, C++, Java. I'm almost certain there was something else as well. If you're interested in how many there have been, come to my room and look at all the programming books that are sitting on my shelves, because I've had to teach myself these things before I teach you guys. Now, I don't say, oh no, I can't do it, because I have programmed, and I've programmed, as I said earlier, for 10 or 15 years. So I have experience in programming, so I can teach people about selection and repetition and iteration and all that kind of stuff. What I need to come to grips with is the actual syntax of the language. And again, if you've been in class with me when I've been doing that, you'll invariably have heard me say, oh no, that's from another language, because I forget sometimes. Doesn't mean I don't know how to do it, I just forget. On the other hand, while I am comfortable that I can teach first year's Introduction to Programming using Python, I'm not sure that I would be comfortable applying for a job where Python was being used for production systems. I'm not convinced that I have that high level knowledge to do that, because I haven't been doing it at that high enough level for long enough. On the other hand, if it was some other language, I would be. So it's kind of saying, yes, I know how to drive a truck, and I can take that knowledge and I can apply it to driving a bus. But I will have to find out some of the differences, and I'll have to find out some of the similarities, and it will take me a wee while to get there. But once you do it, you can drive a truck and a bus. Part of doing that, of course, is having the ethics to be able to say no. No, it's not for me, can't do it, sorry. Which is part of the reason we're doing ethics. And part of the reason that we're doing legislation is because you have to understand that kind of stuff as well. Are you conforming to legislation? Now, not to the level that a lawyer would, but certainly to have a working knowledge of what the requirements are. If someone asks you to program a GDPR front end for a website, well, you might say to them, yeah, I can do the programming part and the website part. I've got a reasonable knowledge of GDPR, but will there be other specialised knowledge to help? And depending on what the answer is, might depend on what you decide to do. If the answer is yes, then fine, you can collaborate. If the answer is no, you might say, okay, well, just so long as you know, I'm happy to do it, but I will have to find out about GDPR and I'll have to get all that information. And sometimes that's fine, because if GDPR is brand new, then nobody knows about it. If someone comes up with Swift programming for iPads, when that came out, nobody knew about it. So you could say, yeah, I've programmed, but not Swift. Choose your example. We always get new things. And as long as you're clear that it's new and you're clear about what you do know, that's okay. In other words, you have to use your professional judgment. You have to use your experience and your skills to say yes or no. And there's a whole bunch of other things there, and you can see them on the screen. You can't have a conflict of interest. You can't say, oh yes, we should buy our computers from, we should buy our firewalls from, we should implement this piece of software because if you have had dealings with them, if it's somebody you know, if they've taken you to an international football match and bought you dinner, these things can lead to a conflict of interest. You also have responsibilities for, sorry, Nick.
Shouldn't you be able to still be recommend them if that conflict of interest is declared? So like, as long as it's public knowledge that there is a conflict of interest, you should still be able to endorse stuff like that.
So it's similar to the point that you just brought up about there being a spectrum. So yes, as long as you say, okay, I am, just so that you know, I went to see Scotland, Ukraine with the firewall company. They bought me dinner and then they told me about their products. Now, I need you to know that, but I'm still going to recommend them because I still think they're the best one. And yes, you're right. As long as you declare that and say, yes, yeah, I have done this, but I promise you it didn't affect my judgment. That's okay, because the people that you're talking to can then decide whether they believe you or not. And that's why you tend to get sort of levels. So when I was in industry, I got more pens and pads and that kind of thing than I could shake a stick at. Why? Because they were relatively low value. That's an IBM System Z pad, plain book. And I was comfortable taking it, and I was comfortable not declaring it, because what's it worth? £3 out of Asda? Nobody's going to be stupid enough to, well, maybe some people would be, but hopefully people aren't stupid enough to sully their professional reputation for a £3 pad or a 50p pen. So quite a lot of organisations have rules on what the level is. If something costs less than a tenner, you don't need to declare it. If it costs more, then you do. So that's not unusual. And it's for exactly that reason that some things might make you change your mind, and you would want to let people know that that's a possibility, even if you're saying that it's not. And yes, that's fine. Because you might also have gone to another one with another firewall company and a third firewall company. And all of a sudden, all the firewall companies you've actually spent time with and had this kind of a relationship with. You're going to have to choose one at some point. So as long as you're clear and upfront, that's okay as far as I'm concerned. So all the things that you're seeing on screen, I think, are fairly self-evident. Help the people that are under you. Accept responsibility for your work. And I know that in some areas, no one ever accepts responsibility. Avoid giving any examples from Westminster in recent times. But accepting responsibility for what you do is important. Keeping things confidential, not, for example, sending them to your mates on WhatsApp, is important. Not lying or withholding information is important, because you do have a lot of knowledge. And sometimes it can be easy to bamboozle other people and say, oh, no, trust me, I know about this, here's what we're going to do. Because people will believe you, of course they will. They don't have that experience. That's why they're coming to you in the first place. And if you don't do that, you can rapidly lose your professional reputation. And it's important for all of us that that reputation is upheld. Otherwise, you get to the point where people aren't saying, do you know a computer person? It's, do you know a good computer person? Do you know someone who's not a cowboy? And I think we can all agree that for all of us, it's better if we're not doing that. It's better if we can say, yes, I do know somebody, and of course they're good. Oh, thank you. It's better if you have a slave girl bringing you tea. I'm just getting shouted at by the slave girl in question. Okay, any questions about that? No.
Where do I get my own slave?
Well, she's been hanging about here for decades, taking stuff off me, so I think it's only fair she brings me a cup of tea occasionally. Okay, let me stop the recording.